The 155-pound UFC lightweight division is in a bit of a weird situation right now, and it's in that weird situation for many different reasons. One of them being the champion. We are not too sure if they're going to be the champion of our division much longer. It sounds like Dana White can convince Khabib to come back, but it sounds like Khabib is doubling down on his statement of not returning to the cage ever again to get 30-0. I don't know what's going on with that. We don't know what's going on with Michael Chandler making his debut in the UFC lightweight division. We don't know what opponent that's going to be against. I know a couple of days ago they were talking about it being against Justin Gaethje at UFC 257. We have no idea. We haven't heard anything more from that. Usually when a fight is announced as in the works, within the next couple of days, it's kind of official. So maybe there's some problems there with the date. I know Michael Chandler's in a weird situation right now where he wants a full camp, etc., etc. So in this video, I'm going to tell you guys what I think is going to be taking place next in the 155-pound division and how I would matchmake that lightweight division moving forward in the year of 2021. Thank you for watching. Let's get straight into it. First of all, what do we know so far? We know that Poirier versus McGregor 2 is happening in UFC 257's main event. Looking forward to that one. The winner of that one's no doubt going to get a good opponent for a title shot, because I'm 100% sure if Poirier McGregor happens in January, we might have a bit of a better understanding by February, March on whether or not Khabib's going to be the champion anymore. Hopefully we understand by then. That would clear some things up, but right now, Poirier McGregor 2, in my opinion, determines the number one contender in the division. I don't know why Gaethje's ranked above Poirier in the division. I mean, Poirier was also an interim champion. He beat Holloway, a champion, to get that interim belt as well. Ferguson was not a champion at the time of fighting for that belt, but still a good contender. But Poirier beat Gaethje, and not that long ago. So I consider Poirier number one ranked in that division, and the winner of that one's going to be in a great situation, the best situation of a winner of any of these fights coming up in the division. That's one we've got to make. And on the other hand, we've got Justin Gaethje sitting out, and he might take on the winner of that bout, but he also feels like he's going to take a fight in the meantime and come off a win. And I will tell you this, I watched that Dan Hooker interview with Submission Radio. He ain't got a fight signed with Chandler or RDA. He ain't got a fight signed with either of them. I don't know who Dan Hook has a fight signed with, but he would not be as happy and grinny as he was and in such a good mood about the opponent that he has signed against him if it was Chandler or RDA or anyone else below that in that division for that information anyway. But I believe that Dan Hooker has either signed a fight with Justin Gaethje or Nate Diaz in the 155-pound division. I don't see Nate Diaz coming back to the 155-pound division, so I feel like they've probably signed Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker. Gaethje wanted a quick turnaround after his loss against Khabib. Hooker has a fight coming up in February. He says on UFC 258 he's just waiting for the opponent to sign it. And usually, when guys are getting offered contracts, it's because they're in negotiations wanting to fight. And Gaethje was offered a contract 5 days ago by the UFC. Dana White said that they're in the works of making the Chandler versus Gaethje fight, but they're not sure it could be the fight that they make. They're just seeing how it goes. It feels like Chandler might not have said yes, and now they've slid Hooker a little contract, because only a couple of days later, Hooker has a really good fight. I also don't see Rafael Dos Anos turning around so quickly in his short age to start again in February, early next year. But still, I look forward to it. I think they're making Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker. And if Justin Gaethje beats Dan Hooker, you should mash him up with the winner of Poirier versus McGregor 2 for the vacant belt. But if Hooker beats Chandler, or no, if Hooker beats Gaethje, sorry, here's where things get interesting. If Dan Hooker beats Justin Gaethje, I think the fight to make is Charles Oliveira versus the winner of Poirier versus McGregor. Only if Hooker beats Gaethje, because if Hooker beats Gaethje, he's on a one-fight win streak after his loss to Poirier, and if McGregor beats Poirier, then McGregor would have just beaten the guy that Hooker lost to just one fight before his last one. And if Poirier beats McGregor, then Poirier's just beat Hooker only a couple of fights ago in his career. So it'd be a weird situation. I feel like only Gaethje can get the title shot if he wins against Hooker. And if he does win or doesn't win, Charles Oliveira, if Gaethje doesn't win his fight with Hooker, which may not be happening, this is all speculation, I think Oliveira should go for the title shot against Poirier versus McGregor 2, and that's what they should make for the belt. You could argue that Oliveira, being so dominant against Tony Ferguson, has made a claim that he honestly could be the guy to lure Khabib out of retirement, because if he beats the winner of McGregor-Poirier quicker than Khabib did by submission, which could happen, he dominated Ferguson. If he beats them quicker than Khabib did, if he gets McGregor out of there in under 4 rounds, and he gets Poirier out of there quicker than Khabib did, and never gets guillotined in the fight, or never gets rocked in the fight, and has an easy win, you could argue that he's the guy who has done things better than Khabib in the lightweight division. I know not overall with the undefeated record, but he could be the guy that would lure Khabib out of retirement, just because Khabib would feel threatened by Oliveira's dominance in beating guys that Khabib's beaten better than Khabib has beaten them, if you understand me. But that's the top 5 figured out. Now we go to Tony Ferguson, who I believe is ranked number 5. So maybe the top 5 isn't figured out. The number 4 ranked guy in the division, Tony Ferguson, recently came off the loss to Charles Oliveira. Not a good one. I feel like we all kind of know where I'm going to go with this. Paul Felder versus Tony Ferguson. It just makes all the sense in the world. But I do want to mention as well, I don't know how Tony Ferguson's going to continue in this division. Usually when you would have told me, Ferguson versus Felder's coming up, a year ago, I would no doubt pick Ferguson. But Felder's got a real chance here. Seeing what he did to RDA on such short notice, he's still very, very relevant in this division. He seems like he's reignited his fire as well. And I think Ferguson losing was a really good gift to Felder, because now they can make that fight and justify it. They're in similar positions in the rankings. Number 4 versus number 8. Not too far apart, not too far-fetched for that matchup to be made. Both of them coming off losses, and the few of them that are coming off losses in that division, you've got Gaethje, you've got Ferguson, you've got Hooker, you've got Paul Felder as well, and Hooker's beat Felder, and Gaethje's beat Ferguson, so they're the 2 winners. So piece them together. Then you've got Ferguson, Felder on the other side of things. I think is a perfect matchup to make. Put it as the main event of a fight night or something along those lines. I just need to see Ferguson in a 5-rounder so I can know that he lost. I'm saying, because whenever Ferguson loses, there's always like, what if there was 20 rounds? But like, let's give him 5 rounds. Main event of a fight night. Ferguson versus Felder. Everybody who's an MMA fan is tuning into that fight night. Moving on. Rafael Dos Anos, speaking of him earlier, versus Michael Chandler is the fight I want to see made. Both of them coming off wins right now, so I think it makes the most sense in the lightweight division. And also, I feel like Chandler should be punished for taking so long to sign a fight in this lightweight division. He has had such a handy selection of things. I don't know how the Gaethje fight isn't figured out yet, but I assume because they were trying to make the Gaethje fight for UFC 257, Chandler might have turned it down, because you know why Chandler turned down the Ferguson bout on a couple of weeks' notice, like 4 weeks' notice, is because he didn't want to do it without a full camp for Tony Ferguson. He wants to be fully prepared for the competition he's about to take on. And Justin Gaethje versus him at 257 would be taking place in, as of this weekend, 5 weeks. I think Chandler probably asked for a longer time to prepare again. He's so weird. I don't know. I've never seen someone offered so much opportunity and turn it down. But I get what he's doing. He wants to be sure that he'll win. But I think that now with all that hesitation, he's kind of missed out on it. It seems like Dan Hooker's either got Gaethje or Nate Diaz, because he would never be as happy as he was about the fight and so weird about it if it wasn't someone who's a big name in the division. I will mention this. Rafael Dos Anos versus Michael Chandler makes sense to me. The winner of that one can take on maybe the winner of Tony Ferguson versus Paul Felder, and the winner of that one can stake their claim for a title shot in certain cases, or for a title elimination bout in other cases as well. That's the matchup I want to see made. Moving on, Ally Quinta. I have no idea what to do with him. He's a fucking real estate agent. He doesn't really fight anymore. So I said Leonardo Santos. Lot of wins, hasn't been looking really good recently, looks really, really old recently, and has had some really close performances against guys that usually in his career he would beat. But I don't feel like Leonardo Santos gets any respect because of how inactive he is, but he has really good wins in that division. Adriano Martins KO'd Islam Makhachev, and Leonardo Santos beat him over 3 rounds for a decision. Kevin Lee is in that division as well, in the rankings of 155 pounds, and we'll get to him in a second. But Leonardo Santos KO'd Kevin Lee. So it's just a weird situation where he doesn't get the credit he deserves. But I think Ally Quinta can spot an older guy who's on his way out that he would get respect for taking on. Because I don't think Ally Quinta wants the tough competition anymore. Like, I think he wants a guy who he can get a win against with a nice win bonus to invest in another property or something along those lines. We'll see what happens with him, but there's a reason why he hasn't left the USADA testing pool, and I think that's because he probably wants some money-making fights that he knows he can win, and I think Leonardo Santos is exactly that, and I don't see him taking a fight versus anyone else who's more dangerous. And they can't do a Kevin Lee trilogy. But speaking of Kevin Lee, I don't know who I want him to take on, but I think it might be Donald Cerrone, moving down to the lightweight division. I feel like with Donald Cerrone, we just don't... There's no need for us to kind of I think if we're going to use him in the lightweight division, we should chuck him to a name we can also use, like a big name in the lightweight division, which is Kevin Lee. Both guys coming off losses, or Cerrone hasn't won a fight. He was coming off a draw, but still coming off losses, and many of them before that as well. I feel like Kevin Lee versus Donald Cerrone at lightweight justifies making it in a good position on the card, because the problem you have with people that go on big losing streaks that are big names or get some momentum behind them is you can't justify their position on cards because of their opponent level. Like if Kevin Lee was to take on a guy like just a normal guy coming off a loss outside of the rankings right now in the lightweight division, I don't know who that would be, like a Mateusz Gamrot, he can't get the co-main event of a fight night. That just won't happen. But against Donald Cerrone, they can use each other and justify their position on a card, as it would bring in some numbers, I'm sure. Kevin Lee versus Donald Cerrone, I think, should happen. I don't want to see Cerrone work his way up throughout outside the rankings. He beat Alexander Hernandez. He beat Al Quinta. Like, he still has clout in the lightweight division. I don't know why we're forgetting about this. He beat Charles Oliveira as well. So, interesting time. I think Donald Cerrone should take on Kevin Lee next. It makes sense to me. Moving on, and maybe the winner of that can take on the winner of Iaquinta versus Santos, whether it be an Iaquinta versus Donald Cerrone rematch, or whether it be Iaquinta showing Kevin Lee who's the boss one more time. I wouldn't mind seeing that. I know everyone else wouldn't as well, but good fights coming up, as I'm sure. Moving on. Ferguson versus Dariush is a fight that's already made, and Makhachev versus Dober is a fight that's in the works. Winners of those take on each other, easy peasy. Ferguson versus Dariush winner versus the winner of Makhachev versus Dober. Winner of that one over 2021. I think that's a little bit of a skirmish that's going to take place in 2021. Those two bouts, then the winners of those two bouts, and maybe even the losers of those two bouts taking on each other, just to figure out who's the best guy outside of the top of the division. And then after that, we can start looking to jump them up into those tops of the divisions against the top 5 guys, because right now we've got to figure out the top 5. So those guys outside of it are going to have to wait in line for a little bit and figure out who's boss amongst them. Moving on, Gillespie versus Rodel is in the works for 258 as well. Really good card. Also, I want to mention Hooker's on 258 apparently, according to him. Gillespie and Rodel are on 258. Rodel is. Adesanya's probably on there as well then. There's no way they're putting all of those guys from CKB on the card if this is not going to be headlined by Israel Adesanya. I don't know if Whittaker's turned around that quickly, or maybe they've given the fight to Jan Blachowicz, but there could be some news coming in the foreseeable future. Moving on though, Gillespie versus Rodel has been made. I don't know how Gillespie's still ranked, but he is, so give him to Rodel. I'm good with that. Also, Alexander Hernandez, I think, should take on Thiago Moises. Hernandez wanted a fight before the end of the year to keep active in December. He didn't get that bout. Moises said he wanted to take on Hernandez early next year. Now it seems like Hernandez is going to be forced to wait until early next year, so why not just make the fight they were going to make anyway between Alexander Hernandez and Thiago Moises? That makes sense to me. Fiziev, I believe, should take on Guram Kutateledze as well. I think it's a good fight. I think it should happen in February, March of next year. I know I wanted to see Guram Kutateledze on the main card of the Khamzat Chimaev versus Leon Edwards bout, just because they train together, so you can get some sort of trickle-down fans in the division, but I wanted to see him versus Matt Frevola on that card, and I can't think of any other names I'd rather see him fight rather than a great name in Rafael Fiziev in February, in March. The winner of that one gets a jump against a guy in the rankings. Maybe the winner of this one gets the winner of Hernandez versus Moises in the rankings, establishes themselves. That's the fight I want to see made that's in the lightweight division. There's a bunch of other names. Drakkar Klose is taking on Jai Herbert. Bobby Green is going to be looking for an opponent, but they're going to have to figure that out amongst themselves. I don't see anything else really happening. Also, the winner of Izatar versus Frevola. If it's Izatar, he's 3-0. So give him a jump up maybe as well. Thank you for watching the video. Like and subscribe. That's what I want to see made next in the 155-pound division. Got there in the end. I hope that's exactly how it's going to turn out. Consider this a bit of a prediction video as well, because not only have I made the fights that I want to see made next, but I've made the fights that I believe the UFC is going to make next as well. So we'll see if my fortune-telling skills are on point in 2021. Thank you for watching. The lightweight division is still on fire, and maybe, just maybe, by the end of this top 5 figuring out phase, we can find someone who's going to lure Khabib back from 29-0 to make that 30-0 record, because why would you spend your entire year going from 20 to 29-0? Why would you spend your whole time? I know he went to 20-0 before that from 0, But you start at 20-0 and you get all the way to 9 and don't round it up to a factor of 10, just doesn't sound right to me. You know what I'm saying? I think Khabib's going to come back. Hopefully his mother gives him his blessing. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Like and subscribe. I'll see you later. Goodbye.